how much individual work, and I suppose what I mean by that is individual film work, do you do away from the very scheduled stuff that you do as a team? I mean, do you go home back to your apartment or to your dorm or wherever you stay, or with your parents? Do you sit then? Will you sit and watch Ole Miss film this evening or tomorrow evening? How do you work, and how do you kind of compartmentalize your week?
Well, all depending on who their defensive coordinator is. So the defensive coordinator is from Colorado. So, I'd watch some games when he was at Colorado, his tendencies on what he'd like to do, on certain down and distances. But I mean, for a day like today, like I'd go back and watch third downs, what they'd like to do on third downs, third and long, how's the pressure going, and then third and short. I mean, do they like to run man? Do they like to run zone? What are the tendencies there? And so you just compartmentalize all of that and kind of write it down and then really study all of that. That's how I would go about doing it. But then at the same time, you got to be able to react as well with in-game things because, these guys, everyone likes to throw something new at you, and so just got to be ready for all of that.
I'm sure. Do you like watching film? Is that something that you enjoy very much? Because obviously as you progress through your career, that's going to become a very important aspect of what you have to do when you take that next step up.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is something you have to do, but I think in order to be successful too, you really got to watch film. If you don't like watching film, I don't see how you can become successful, like picking defenses out. I mean, I just couldn't see myself not watching film and being successful,
I'm sure.
So
I'm sure. How much more comfortable do you feel in year 2, 4 games in as a full-time starter than you did, say, this time last year? Because, I've seen every throw that you've made at Alabama, but in terms of how you feel personally, do you feel more comfortable in your own skin in terms of you're seeing and the defenses that you're able to read on a Saturday?
Yeah, I'd say I'm still trying to find my comfortability, within the offense. The stats say that, everything's going well, but I still feel like there's another level that we can get into, like as far as playing fast, as far as playing, with good intentions, when we go into the game and executing at a high level. So, I don't think that, we're there yet, but I think we're getting there.
For somebody that's thrown almost 70 career touchdowns, to say that you're not particularly comfortable with where you're at is quite a statement of where you'd like to be.
Well, I think it's the expectation that's set here as well. You have so many guys surrounding you that, that want to do good and that expect good from you, that, I mean, you expect good from yourself.
Yeah.
So I got guys like Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. All these guys are expecting, for me to get them the ball. And we're also expecting those guys to make plays when they have the ball, and so just a lot of high expectations for everyone around our offense, as well as the linemen. So it's just that.
Watching your games last season and watching them this season, it's clear that you've progressed in a number of areas, which I'm sure that you're aware of as well. But I suppose the biggest one that stands out for me is that you're not that you were forcing things last year, but you're just taking what the defense gives you, never going broke, taking a profit, that kind of thing. Has that been difficult for you to rein in a little bit, given that you've got Jalen Waddle and Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, and the fact that you've got Miller Forrestall and Najee in the backfield and things, just to be able to take what the defense gives you rather than going for broke on every play? Has that been something that's difficult for you to rein in? Because it must be tough to be that kind of gunslinger that you were a bit more last year and maybe not quite as much this year.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot different. But yeah, I'd say that's where I've improved the biggest was there. Not really looking at the first read and praying that, okay, I want you to get open now. Like, get open, you know?
Yeah.
Just moving throughout my progressions, looking at number 2, he's not open. Okay. Looking at number 3 and staying disciplined in that aspect to even take the check down, you know? And so, I mean, it's hard for a defender to tackle a guy out there in open space. So you give the ball to one of our guys in open space, they'll make a man miss, and it could probably go for a touchdown.
Yeah. Your footwork, your pocket manipulation. I've been a football fan, even though in the UK I've been a football fan. This is my 35th season. I've watched an awful lot of games, both in the States and on TV. And your footwork at times is as good as I've seen. Is that something that you work on specifically? Just the way that you're able to manipulate the pocket with a little, like your first pass a couple of weeks ago, I think it was against, maybe it was against South Carolina at the weekend, but you just sidestepped to the left and hit Jerry Jeudy sort of 6 or 7 yards down the field. But it was just the way that you manipulated that pocket and avoided the pass rush, almost a sort of sixth sense of, I don't think you could even see it was a backside pressure, and you just stepped to the side and made the throw. How much do you work on football? Or is that a natural thing that just comes to you?
Well, I think it's something that's worked on since, you start playing the quarterback position. I mean, footwork is probably the most important thing because that's your base. And off of that, that's where you get your power. That's where you get your accuracy. It's not too much arm, especially when you're throwing a pass.
Yeah.
So I think once you kind of get used to it, then it becomes something that's very comfortable. But no, I'd say I've been doing it for a long time. So at this point, it's comfortable.
Coach Saban says you're a lot more confident this season. Do you feel that?
Yes and no. I mean, I feel confident in the things that I can do and the things that I'm able to do, but I feel like there's more things that, I still can get better at, and there's more things that I can still, help myself out with, with leadership and, other things like that as well.
People say, it's easier for Tua because he's throwing to Ruggs and Smith and Jeudy and what. Do you ever hear that stuff, and what do you think about it? Does that ever affect you?
Well, I don't think it affects me, but if you really think about it, I mean, they're not wrong, I mean, you throw into guys that are fast, you throw into guys that are very athletic, and you got to look at it like this way as well. Our guys are probably the shortest guys as far as SEC receivers. So I don't got guys that are, 6'6", 6'5", that are, skyrocketing out the sky, that are wowing people with that. But the aspect that you give the ball to them in space and they can turn that into a big play is, I mean, I couldn't even tell you that I do a lot of the work because I really don't. They're the guys that do all the work. They got a block too, and I mean it's a lot of things that go into playing their position. But I mean, I would say they're right. They're right. I mean, I probably have the best receiving, if not the best receiving core in college football.
How difficult is it to shut out the noise? How difficult is it to be Tua Tagovailoa, because you must be aware of the hype and the noise around you. How difficult is it for you just to be Tua and just be an ordinary guy?
It's not that difficult. I found some ways, to kind of distinguish, things that I do on the football field and things that I do off the football field. Like my biggest thing is if people like want a picture, just ask.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just pulling out their phones and like taking pictures, while like I'm eating with my family. Then that's when I'd kind of tell them, now's not the time. Like, if you want a picture, ask. And so things like that.
Okay.
Guess I got to get him to meeting. Maybe one more.
Okay, no problem. The kind of the noise that I said and the stuff. Are you aware of things like the sort of the tanking for Tua phenomenon that's happening around the NFL? Does that make its way to you? Does that seep through to you? And are you aware of the kind of the next step up in terms of teams are potentially not throwing games, but teams are struggling, and your voice, your name is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of it, especially from my teammates.
Okay.
You know, a lot of my teammates love to joke about it, but I mean, it's something that I'm not as much worried about. You know, right now. I mean, we still got about 10 more games or so to play, and so it's a long season, and so we can only focus on the things that we got to do now. You know, and you know when that time comes, then we'll end up worrying about that later. But I ain't too focused about all of that right now.
Of course. Listen, I really appreciate your time, and say thanks to Josh.
Thank you.
Wish you best of luck at the
Thank
weekend and for the rest of the season and what comes after that.
All right. Thank you.